is Veronica. I'm born in Argentina, far away. Parents from Italy and Spain. They were working in South America. I studied there, and then I moved to continue my education in the States, and then up in the United States and the UK. And then I decided Italy was quite ahead for tourism, and I thought, well, why not to come here and learn more about the service industry. Then I was headhunted by Starwood company at that time, owning Sheraton, W, and today owning also Marriott, to join them in their development in Asia. So I worked there in Thailand, in Singapore, and in the first hotel in China. After that, I was again headhunted to go to the Middle East. And I remember when I joined the first time Dubai, there was sand everywhere, and there were 2 hotels. To today, what was working together with the tourism authority, the airline, and different bodies to grow to create a city that will welcome 33 million tourism a year. So it's very, very interesting. Jobs are changing. They're not the same as when I finished, but what took me to that path and what I could say was the 3 key things was to be resilient, cultural sensitive, because not everybody is the same. Know very, very, very well my transferable skills. Do you know what is a transferable skill? No. Okay, what you're good at? What you're good at? For example, what you're good at?
Reading.
Reading?
Reading.
Okay. Explaining others?
Being organized.
Okay.
Yeah.
You see, that's a very transferable skill. Yes, being detailed and a leader, being a leader in your group when your friends tell you, my God, you always know what we want, or you always know the directions. That's a leader. And those are the skills that we all need to have in order, we all need to know to understand the direction where we're going, and making sure that we use, maybe we have studied like demography. People think today on environmental friendly things. What about demography for tourism? Those are details and data that we had for years, and it's a huge impact in the tourism industry. But what we need to know, I think, is being reasonable, being sensible, knowing our transferable skills, getting up when you are down and you think, gosh, I've been studying for so many years and it seemed not to get anything right. And I think probably that was one of the most successful things, knowing where you're going, even though you haven't decided yet what is your right direction, or where it's your ultimate destination. But knowing what are your next steps is very important.
My interest started when I was a student, and I took the available creative writing courses as an undergraduate. Then I expected that I would have to teach if I wanted to continue to write. That was the usual path for writers in my day. It's less so now because there are fewer teaching positions available. But I went to graduate school and got a PhD in literature. And I expected then that I would have to be a vassal in some university English department for the rest of my life. But it didn't work out that way. I mean, I got a Fulbright fellowship during my PhD days, and I went off to France, and I fell in love with the idea of living in Europe. And so I did teach a bit early in my career, in my 20s, but I always wanted to get back to Europe. And For a while, I was the head of the creative writing department at the University of Texas in Austin. But I spent every other year here. In fact, a lot of the time I spent right up the street at the American Academy. As soon as I could afford to, probably before I could afford to, I simply packed up and moved to Rome. I had 2 children then. I was 37 years old. I'm sure if any of you, I quit academia, I had a tenured job, I quit the tenured job and just moved to Rome and decided I wanted to support myself as a writer. If any of you do that, I hope your parents do to you what I would do to my kids, which was beat them with a bicycle chain if they made that decision. I think in retrospect, it was a very rash thing to do. But it put a lot of pressure on me to produce, and fortunately I was able to do so. Writing was one of the few careers where it's all up to you. You're free to develop your work. You're free to write as much as you want to, or not. I guess the only thing that is the pressure is on you to support yourself. If you can do that in some other way, if you have some other string to your bow and can work in some career that supports you, that's good. For the most part, most writers can't support themselves just with their writing. I know that there was this famous survey done by the Authors Guild, must be decades ago now, but it said that the average person who defined himself as a writer or described himself as a writer making $4,700 a year. Well, that doesn't go very far. So they had to find another way of supporting themselves. Obviously, the only people you read about, the only writers that you know the names of, are ones who are very successful, who were in the papers or on TV, whatever. And I think most people are under the illusion that all writers are in that category, but they're not. And I think if you go into writing and you want to do it as a career, you want to do it professionally, you need to be a self-starter. You need to have a lot of initiative, and you need to acquaint yourself with disappointment. And because the only thing I can guarantee is that you will have periods when you are very disappointed. I threatened to be very frank about this. I mean, I think it's sort of like, this is not the group that I should be talking to, you're all women, but in my day, guys always wanted to play football, and they said they were under the illusion they would go ahead and play professional American football. And I used to advise anybody, my students when I was at the University of Texas, who thought they had a career in football, to go into the locker room and look around at the people who played on the college level and would play in pros. They were all very big, very strong, but more importantly, they all had scars all over them. They all had their teeth knocked out. They all were familiar with pain. And as I said to Sylvia, if you want to be a writer, you really have to plan on getting your ass kicked. And that's as simple as that. But if you're willing to do it, it has its rewards and it has its satisfactions. And one of them is self-expression, and one of them is you're being self-employed, so you have a great deal of freedom. And if you find a way of finagling a bit where if you write fiction, and as I do, write nonfiction as well, you can frequently do nonfiction work, journalism or literary journalism that helps you finance your fiction. Writers write, and if you find it very difficult to put words on the page and you never get around to writing, then that's God's way of telling you don't be a writer.
I feel very privileged and very excited to be back here at AUR. The university has changed immensely, to the point of when I was a student here, this room did not lend itself to something like this. It was a group of rows of desks with big PCs, you know, the big chunky ones that y'all probably have never seen before. But so it was really a lot different than it is now. And so what I would like to share with you is a little bit about my journey of coming to AUR and how that's impacted my professional journey. So I am the International Director of Communications and Fundraising, which essentially means I'm the global head of communications and fundraising for a very large humanitarian organization. And I mention that because when I came to AUR, I graduated in communications, but I started off as an international relations major. I know several of you, and very, very familiar faces, and so you've already heard me speak, so close your ears. But when I first came to AUR, I wanted to be an IR grad. I really wanted to get into politics. I wanted to work in some sort of humanitarian organization, but I didn't know what that looked like. I had a wonderful writing professor who taught me that I actually liked to write, that I really liked storytelling, and so I went down the communications path, and also because it felt much more comfortable than what international relations and politics really offered in my life at the time. So after graduation, I had no idea what I wanted to do, so my first plug is do not get a master's unless you really know what you want to study. I think it's a waste of time, energy, money, and really when you get a master's immediately after graduation, it's difficult to get a good paying job because the job market is even more difficult than it was when I graduated, which I believe we were in an economic recession at the time, which we're going back into one, so yay! So exciting. So when I went out my parents said, honey, just go and work, and I did, and I had a very fortunate position that I found through AUR, thank you, working with the Vatican, and I did that for many years, and then I went back to the US. I was recruited for a position in communications in the States, and really going from living in Europe to going to the US has, just the way that we see the world and the way that it's helped me grow as a person and just understanding, and it's helped me immensely in advancing my career because I've had various positions. I've worked in many different organizations and even just with different cultures, and I mentioned cultural sensitivity. It's really, really important. All to lead me back to Rome, and I have a wonderful position in a humanitarian organization that we have interns in various different respects. So everything from communications, finance, business, programmatic staff, which would be international relations, all things that we have the opportunity, and there's opportunities to work with us. But I guess the biggest thing is when you're 18, 19, and you're going off to school, and you think, wow, you see the world in such a unique way at that age, and you think, I have to get everything figured out. I tell Sydney this all the time. You don't have to have it all figured out at a young age. You can make lots of mistakes. And in fact, if there's anything I wish my professors would have told me more of, is make lots of mistakes. Make mistakes every day, get fired. Have never been fired, but I've heard that it's highly recommendable. Just the life experiences that you can have and the different things that you can do are going to lead you to your next position, your next role, or figuring out the next best thing in your life. And be proactive, be very proactive. So if someone says, hey, send me an email, follow up. Make sure you do those things. I know when you're young, it's difficult to really think about the idea of networking. Even, in fact, I heard you mentioning the LinkedIn profile pictures. That's great. Do it. Have a sophisticated LinkedIn profile picture. Facebook was coming out when I was in college. So things have changed, and reach out to the university. There are a lot of us alum in the neighborhood who would be more than happy to talk to you, to help with you, help in any way, shape, or form, and just don't think that whatever you're doing right now is what you're going to be doing for the rest of your life, because it can change.
Finance. The best intern I ever had, she joined me in summer of '94, between junior and senior year, She knew nothing about derivatives, nothing about options. I had her work for 3 months, and she finished college the following year, got a job in Morgan Stanley, went to Goldman Sachs and everything. She's now 47 years old. She's retired. Her last salary was £3 million. £3 million, about $4 million. And now she does online cooking courses. She got burnt out, but she made a big wallet. So that's the best thing about finance. The worst thing about finance is the grueling hours. You're gonna work, if you think military service is hard, it's a joke. They make you work 60, 70, 80 hours a week. And they just squeeze you like a lemon, and you think there's nothing left. They'll say, there's a bit of rind left. And they'll keep squeezing you, squeezing you, squeezing you. However, if you're able to survive that, you have, if it interests you still, a job for life no matter where you go in the world. Finance is the same all over the world. It's numbers. You don't have to be a genius in numbers. It's not vectors, abstract math. It's just quick, fast arithmetic. If you're fast in counting and you can understand proportions quickly, you have a possibly very successful career in finance. I started in finance, taking a year off between high school and college. And you're all obviously college students. If you're in no rush, like you said previously, if you're in no rush to graduate, take a year off. Find what your passion is. Do not spend the extra money for an MBA or a master's or a PhD just because you don't do it. Try everything. Try something. Because what you want to do is make your CV special, extraordinary in the etymological sense of the word, out of the ordinary. Because AUR graduates how many people a year?
Well, we have 630 students, I'm not sure.
Let's say 400, let's say 150, okay? 150 will come out of AUR every year. Now, you can multiply that by 1,000 if you add all the US universities. That's 150,000 people every year. If you add the Indians, it's another couple of million, maybe 5 million, and you add the South Americans. The applicant pool for jobs is enormous. What you have to do, and this is what I'm going to close on, is to make your CV unique and distinguishable from other CVs. So, 2 things. 1, your CV on 1 page. Anything longer than 1 page goes straight in the circular bin. People can't be bothered. If you cannot synthesize something quickly enough in 1 page, it's not good. Second thing, make sure your CV has things that make you attractive to the person who reads it. For example, let's say you climbed Kilimanjaro barefoot. Let's say you built houses in Peru. Put that in your CV, because that's going to make you interesting compared to other people who just got straight A's. If you can get a monkey, you can get a monkey to get straight A's if he tries hard enough. Is he going to be a good employee? No. He's a monkey. You guys are humans, you have human capital, use it. The world of finance. I got 2 more minutes, right? Okay, good. The world of finance is spectacular. Arrays everywhere. It can be used in industry, it can be used in engineering, it can be used in every aspect of life, even in household. When you go shopping, how not to spend money, how to save money. Finance is all of that. So if you're interested in finance, I'd encourage you to come and chat with me later on if you want to. Otherwise, good luck in your life.
And thank you for having me here. What I would like to talk to you today is about the opportunities in the field of climate change more broadly. I think your generation of people, I think as we've seen with Greta Thunberg and all of the youth movement, is really at the forefront of calling for very transformational action across all sectors to address the climate crisis. And I think we're all feeling that, and every sector is feeling it. And there are ways that you can use your talents to collectively solve this problem. And I just wanted to sort of share my story in this field and how it's actually a very uplifting field to be in. I think some people think, oh, it's depressing, it's death, it's destruction. It's actually an incredibly inspiring field to be engaged in. So I come from things from the environmental standpoint, and I don't know if you've heard about nature-based solutions. Has anyone heard about this? I mean, basically there's a very strong movement about using nature as a way to solve climate change. And so thinking about, protecting forests, planting trees, taking care of the oceans, all of these nature-based solutions are ways to actually suck carbon out of the atmosphere. And so as you know, we've been polluting, these are ways to actually try to keep some of that in check. And then also working on helping those that are the most vulnerable, because as we know, when there are fires, when there are floods, when there are landslides, people like us are really able to be resilient against those. I mean, we have our air conditioners, we have the ways to move around, and many people in many parts of the world, of course, do not have that. And so a lot of what we're trying to do too is work with rural communities to help them also face the effects of climate change. So I lived in Brazil for 10 years, and I worked in the Amazon region, studying tropical forestry and community forest management. So I was really in the field for years and years, kind of on boats and rivers. And my husband's currently doing that. He's a filmmaker, and he's working in the Amazon making films with indigenous peoples. And I did that for 10 years, and then I moved to Indonesia in 2015 to work at a place called the Center for International Forestry Research. And it was this think tank for scientists like me who were working on tropical forestry issues. And there I got really interested in climate change issues and how forestry could be used to sort of help solve this. And so ended up leading the forest and climate change team there. And then very randomly, as Sylvia knows, there was a job opening at FAO here in Rome, and I had met some of the UN people working on climate change issues, and I was always very impressed by them. And what's very interesting about the United Nations is that governments are part of the UN, and they come to us seeking help. And so we have, the ministers from Colombia, from Brazil, from Indonesia, from Ghana, from Kenya, coming to FAO and asking them for support on helping protect their forests, restore their forests, and help solve the climate crisis. And so it's a very interesting position to have because you can really make a difference in the UN. And I come from more of a think tank research organizations where I was very free, I was able to do a lot of science, advocacy around these issues, and now moving to a much more rigid structure, but a structure where you have the whole UN behind you. So it's not Amy Duchel saying forests are important for climate change, it's FAO saying that, and we're able to really interact with countries and communities and really make some impact on the ground. So I think if any of you are interested in environmental issues, of course, please come talk to me. But also just climate change in general. I mean, the finance sector, the biggest inspirational movement has been in the finance sector, where companies are really thinking about how they can make their investments, their lifestyles even more climate friendly. So I think there's a huge opportunity across the spectrum of interests and talents to engage in fighting this climate challenge that we have together. And frankly, your generation and my kids' generation is going to be feeling this much more than even we will. So, the more you can get involved early, I think the better, because you can really still make a difference. Thanks.
I'm going to share my experience, although we have a lot of things to think about today. After I finished high school, I didn't really know what to do. I wasn't a good student. I had no willpower, I say, no wanting to study, and no ideas of what I really liked. So my family a little bit pushed me into university, going to engineering. I studied, I could do it. I did 3 exams in a year, which is a lot because they're huge exam in the Italian university. And after a year, I ran away. I went to live in Amsterdam. I was going to stay for a week, and I stayed a year. If I think about it now, it's obvious I didn't want to go back to my previous life because I hated it. I had no, future in that direction that I could see. But stayed there, being independent, mature a little bit, grow up, and find my own personal skills. Made me decide that what I wanted to do and what I like to do. So I came back to Italy. I started to do acting schools for 3 years with Beatrice Bracco. It changed really my life, the way I have a perception of life. And although I'm shy, which is not a great talent for an actor, I could say, it was my path. It was a little bit difficult at the beginning to get good jobs. I got commercials mostly, small parts. Then I finally got a good part in Posto al Sole. And I stayed there for like 15 years, which is a lot. And I can say at least 5 of those 15 years were really boring. And I have no memories almost of what I've done. If I see a scene in TV, I don't recognize it. I don't remember anything. It was someone else doing it. So I gave up. At the moment, I'm president of a non-profit organization which is bringing food to people in need. We raised over €1 million and helped about 20,000 families, which is a lot, starting from nothing. I'm producing 2 documentaries and a fiction movie, and I'm also into some real estate business, which I'm not going to go into details. I'm exploring what I like to do. I think I still have to find it out, and I'm 50. So it takes a lot of time, especially if you have parents with a little bit of interference, which is everywhere. Because even when they tell you, just like you have to get a good job or a good position or social respect or good money, whatever is the decision you take is going to influence you. So, find out, my suggestion is find out what you like to do while you're doing it. Because you're going to give and put so much time in it. So much more time than if you do something you don't like. It's quite obvious, and you go faster than the people that are applying for the same job. And you put more energy and more passion, and you want to learn more and do more. And this is what I feel it's worth to share.